Screw it to the plywood so that I can cut through both materials at one time. Suppose there are many ways to cut this slot, but I like to use the table saw. And by using the fence as a guide and slowly plunging the piece over the blade, I can cut out my slot. Okay, now I'll just readjust my fence over another 3/4 of an inch and make the other cut. Oh, my electric jigsaw sure makes quick work of finishing up that slot. The top is fastened to the frame by using 1.5 screws, about 6 inches on center, all the way around the perimeter. Let's take another look at our completed bench. You'll notice that I've had to cut out part of the top for the vise mechanism. So I've gone over here and done the layout on the hardboard, and I'm going to use my circular saw to take out that material. Hopefully I've laid it out right so I won't cut out any of my 2x4 below or hit any of those screws. And now I'll just finish those cuts with my jigsaw. Finally, I'm ready to start in with the oak banding. And the end pieces of the table are just square cuts, and they fit in to rabbited front and back pieces like this. Now I've laid out the rabbet for the front piece, and I'll cut that over here on the table saw using the dado head and the T-square. Now this back piece of oak, as well as the two end pieces, also need a dado to hold this piece of plywood at the bottom of the tool storage area, much like the one that was in the 2x4. And I'll do that over on the table saw. The last two dados that I made are on these pieces. This one, which fits on the inside of the vise area, and the dado is for this piece of oak, which acts as a runner for the vise block right here. You can see the runner in there. And I also needed a dado in the front piece for the other side of the runner. And you see that this block rides back and forth on those two pieces of oak. In fact, we're ready to start building that block. Now, the vise block is made from 2 pieces of 1.5 inch oak. And I need a square hole through there for the bench dogs. I've already cut one, but on this other half, you can see the layout lines. Again, at 4 degrees, just like they were on the 2x4s earlier. Except this time I'm going to do it on the table saw with my dado head and the T-square. And I've put an extension on the T-square to make it safer to handle these small pieces of wood. Watch. Now, the last groove that I have to make is in the side of each piece, and that'll provide a track for the runner to go in. A little bit of glue here, and then we'll be ready to screw it together. And boy, you know, on this oak, it's critical to cut pilot holes. It's such a hard wood. With the runner glued and screwed from the back side, I'm ready to set this piece in place and fasten it to the frame with some screws. Okay, with the runner installed in my front piece of band, I'm ready to set that in place. I'm only going to temporarily fasten this particular piece because I'm going to have to take it out later to put the bench vise in. So a couple screws in each end. Now I can put the side pieces on. They just fit right in that rabbet. Okay. Now this 2-inch band goes along the back of the top, and that just dresses it up where it goes into that tool storage shelf. Now I'm ready for the plywood shelf for that tool area, and that fits right into all those dados that I've made. Like that, and then the back piece of oak fits over the outside. And we'll screw that together at each of the corners. Now with my front piece removed, I'm ready to drill a hole through the 2x4 in oak for my bench screw. And I'll do that with an 1 3/8" bit, starting from this side and finishing it from the other side. The collar for the bench screw gets attached to the wooden block with some big screws. The collar fits over the end of the bench screw like this, and then the nut of the bench screw right here is fastened with 4 carriage bolts. Okay, that takes care of the carriage bolts. Now I can set this front piece back in place, fasten it down, and the end is in sight. Now the bench dogs from the European bench are made out of metal, and I can't really make those here in the shop, but I can sure make them out of wood. And what I've done is taken a piece of oak and cut it out to the approximate shape, and then installed an 1/8" piece of oak, which acts like a spring to hold it in place. And the first thing I'm going to do is cut these pieces on the bandsaw. Now I'm ready to attach these little 1/8" pieces to act as springs. But first I'm going to have to drill a pilot hole for the screws, especially in this hard oak. Now just a couple small screws. Now those should work great. Let's try our bench dogs. One will go in the various slots along the table, depending on the size of the piece of wood that I'm going to be clamping in here. And let's put it here for now. And the other one will go in the vise, which is the movable part of the system. Now the tendency of these is that as a piece is clamped, this will push back. So to prevent that, I've cut some additional hardwood blocks at a 4-degree angle, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom and put it behind the bench dog, making sure that it's tight up against it, and I'll fasten it in place with a couple screws, and I'll put one behind each location all the way down the line. Oh, now here's something I almost forgot to do. Where the bench dogs go into the sliding block, I need to recess them out so that this will go all the way down. Otherwise, whenever I want to have the bench as a perfectly flat surface, they're going to be in the way. So I'll do that by using a brad point bit and a chisel to remove the rest of the material. That's going to work fine. Well, with the final screw in place to hold the bottom shelf in, this bench is ready to go to work. Come on, you can do it. Build one of these, and you'll be glad you did. On next week's program, we'll build this classic drop leaf table. It's made from ash, and it has some beautifully turned legs. Well, that's it for today. Hope to see you back here next time on the new Yankee Workshop.